So we are privileged to have with us Thiru C.V. Shankar IAS, the Additional Chief Secretary of Industries Department of Govt of Tamil Nadu. Sir, may I request you to deliver your keynote and presentation, sir.
Mr. Lakshminarayan, Mr. Shiv Kumar, our other distinguished members in the audience, including my colleagues from the government. It gives me great pleasure to be with you this evening. I'm happy that ICTACT has organized this good event as one of the prelude events to our Global Investors Meet. I have a very short presentation. Let me just briefly touch upon some of the points which relate to our state in terms of the developments that have taken place, the developments that are going on right now, and what we envisage for the state. Tamil Nadu stands first in some of the areas related to industries that has been our history for quite some time. We are number one in terms of the number of factories and also the industrial workforce, and not Maharashtra state, which normally is number one in many of these aspects. We have almost all the major automobile manufacturers, starting from Ford, Hyundai, Nissan, Renault, BMW, Daimler. Yamaha is a recent addition, Mitsubishi. The state is very high in terms of its output, in terms of not only the new sectors like electronics, but also old sectors like textiles, leather and leather products. In terms of renewable energy, of course, we are number one in the country. The wind energy capacity is 8,500 megawatts. I don't think any other state in India will be able to match this in the future also. And we are also catching up very fast in solar energy, and probably I think we would be crossing many of the states like Gujarat in the near future. TN has some of the earliest IT parks developed from the government side also, the Tidal Park and the other SEZs which Atul was mentioning. Urbanization, we are number one in the country in terms of urbanization. I think by the year 2030 or so, almost 60 to 70% of our population would be in the urban areas. Even in the Government of India Smart City program, we have about 12 cities which have been taken up in the first round. And in terms of the other aspects like tourism, etc., we are actually number one. We have been number one in the domestic tourism for quite some time, probably thanks to Tirupati and Rameshwaram and all that. But we are number one in terms of foreign tourist arrivals also in the last year, which is much higher than God's own country and Uttar Pradesh, etc., etc. In terms of technical manpower, I don't need to dwell much on this. We do have a large number of technical universities, deemed universities, and institutions like the IIT and many others, which are almost more than 100 years old, some of them are. And these institutions have produced outstanding quality of technical manpower that's available in our state. Now, in terms of this, one is, of course, the diversified economy. Atul was pointing out the various SEZs which were there in different parts of the state. Tamil Nadu has the advantage of having a well-dispersed development, and we are not dependent on one particular city or town or a port. This I have already mentioned in terms of graduates, etc. We are the only state with 4 large ports. 3 are around Chennai, 1 is run by private sector L&T, and 1 in Tuticorin. We handle about 15% of the cargo of India. And we are the only state with 4 international airports, with the direct connectivity to almost 40 international destinations, 200,000 kilometers of roads, and we have the highest percentage of multi-lane roads in the country. In terms of power consumption, we are quite high, one of the highest in the country, 1,277 units per capita. The state is already power surplus, even though I have mentioned here it's 2016. We started off with very concrete and very concise, consistent policies right from the year 1992. That paved the way for the automobile revolution here and automobile components. We produce 30% of India's output in auto and auto components, and 70% of India's passenger car exports are from our state. Basically Hyundai and Renault Nissan now. And the 2003 we had another policy, and that paved the way for the electronics component makers and companies to come in big way. We had one pitfall, one negative story, namely that of Nokia, which obviously we are aware that the Tamil Nadu government did not have any role in this. It was more because of the retrospective taxation which the government of India had introduced at that time. That issue is still not solved. Apart from that, we do find that there is a big potential in terms of electronic hardware, and we are seeing a lot of interest of late in some of these companies which are coming up. In our global investor meet, we are going to see such some very good investments. Unfortunately, I am not able to divulge the names right now. We also have a very strategic roadmap, a very well laid out Vision Tamil Nadu 2023 unveiled by our Chief Minister. And this has very concrete 217 projects, of which about 75 are already under implementation. Recent updates, in the 2014-15, our GDP has been assessed at current prices, 9.7 lakh crore, which is 14% higher than the previous year. And this is next only to Maharashtra. And our exports have grown up from $22 billion to 35 billion, 22 billion in the year 2010-11 to 35 in the year 14-15, the compounded growth of 12%. Software, electronic goods, 8.8 to 13 billion, again 14% interest. Recently, ASSOCHAM came out with a study about a week back that we are number one in generating jobs in the manufacturing sector. 15% of the total jobs in manufacturing sector in that particular year was generated in our state. Some of these indicators I have already mentioned. Again, ASSOCHAM came out with a study in February 2015. They assessed and ranked the states in 9 parameters. We are number one in 8 out of these 9 parameters. And overall, the ASSOCHAM study gave us the first rank. As I mentioned, we are number 2 in terms of contribution to India's GDP. And in terms of per capita income, we are more than 100,000 rupees compared to other states like Uttar Pradesh, which is hovering around 36,000 rupees. In terms of cumulative FDI inflows, it has been 17 billion over the last 15 years. But the interesting part is, in the last 4 years, this has seen about $11 billion FDI, compared to about 6.8 in the years from 2000 to 2011. And ITS exports, I think I don't need to say much to this audience. We are home to 50 of the Fortune 500 companies. More than 3,000 foreign companies are there. The number of Japanese companies has exceeded 680. We have 250 American companies, more than 200 Korean companies, French, German, UK, etc. Their numbers hover around 40, 50, 65 and so on. We have seen recent developments from Taiwan. Many of their companies are showing interest in putting up their units here. And when we talk to these industrialists, particularly from Japan and the East and other countries, one thing stands out. They have been extremely happy with the welcoming nature of the state, the work culture here, the quality of workers. In fact, I was talking to the Renault Nissan people, asking them as to what is the level of the skill which is displayed by our workers. They said that in the beginning our chaps really do not measure up to international standards, but over a period of time, within a very short while, 6 months or so, they become so well trained that they can be trainer of trainers. And similar stories have been seen in the software industry also. And we have been seeing that some of the Tamil Nadu industrialists who wanted to set shop elsewhere they have all confirmed that the quality of labor which they saw here cannot be matched elsewhere. So that seems to be the long-term USP for the state. And in terms of infrastructure, these points I have already mentioned. And electronic and software, ITS ecosystem, we do have a lot of back office operations that have been going on from the beginning. World Bank was one of the earliest, Standard Chartered Bank. We have the back office operations of Ford Business Services, and we have many others lined up, and a lot of work is going on in this regard. And we are also having a lot of R&D work that is being done out of Chennai. Mahindra Research Valley, it produces some of the latest vehicles of the Mahindra Group, including the recently last year introduced XUV 500. And we are having a huge presence of engineers of Renault Nissan. Daimler has a very big research and development unit here. In fact, they recently developed a very, very strong truck suited for the fantastic road conditions of India. And this was taken up by their parent company in Germany, saying that this is one of the toughest trucks we have seen. So we have had many good examples of automobile companies putting up a lot of their R&D units here. Yesterday, the Bosch chairman was here, and he was mentioning about the unit in Coimbatore, which is producing the designs for many of their products to Mercedes and other companies. So basically, I think with the paraphernalia that we have in terms of IITs and Anna University and many other universities, the research parks and the research environment, and last but not least, the point which Atul mentioned, that these guys want to stick together to their native places. I think many of our chaps don't like to leave beyond their shores, and that sometimes is an advantage, but I would not rate it very high in terms of adaptability to new cultures and so on. But the fact of the matter is that the quality of the persons which are available for any kind of company is simply outstanding. Of course, automobiles I have already mentioned. This also I have mentioned. This policy framework is something which I would like to briefly mention. Apart from these policies, normally the change of regime doesn't affect the policy framework here. And we have had very good examples. I can cite only one. Toshiba has put up its turbine making project here for supercritical thermal power stations. The turbine project is in north of Madras. When this project was under discussion, the then government and the officials had promised that a road connectivity will be given to this project to Ennore port. At that time, the cost was assessed as about 30 crore rupees. But when the actual detailed project report and engineering was done, it was found that they had to rebuild 5 bridges, including one railway bridge, which cost about 180 crores. But still, we went ahead and completed the job for them, and the company was very happy with that. This was one of the ticklish issues for them, that the connectivity has not been provided so far, etc. That was done. I'm only reiterating that point only to highlight that in terms of policy framework, we are very consistent, and that probably is one of the reasons why the companies which set shop here continue to invest for their expansion plans. Recently, we got the approval of Honorable Chief Minister for ensuring that all the approvals are given within a period of 30 days of application. And this process is a continuous one, I guess. Everybody will have their experience, and whatever the point which government officials say or whatever, the people will generally go by their own experience. If that experience has been good, it will be appreciated. If it's not, then they will say that these guys are simply talking through their hats. Nothing is happening on the field. But Tamil Nadu, we try to ensure that the written word is respected and it is followed through to ensure that we don't have any hassles once the units are set up here. This is the strategic framework for growth in terms of the Vision Tamil Nadu 2023 document. As I mentioned, this covers many sectors like energy, transportation, industrial and commercial infrastructure, urban infrastructure, agriculture, human development, of which much would have been talked about, skill development, etc. We have the Skill Development Corporation, which which this is one instance where our finance secretary says that he doesn't have a budgetary constraint. Couple of days earlier, we had a meeting in the government where finance secretary made this comment saying that I don't have a budgetary constraint so far as skill development is concerned. I think his heart is in the right place, and I do appreciate that this is one area where the state can continue to be the leader for many more decades to come. Social and general infrastructure projects, capital improvements to existing projects, etc. I would like to say one point relating to Tamil Nadu. Normally, every state officer who makes a pitch for investments elsewhere, whether it's in international or national roadshows, will always say that his state is the best and they offer the best package, they offer the best facilities, and so on and so on and on. And only the industrialists know the truth, probably, in terms of the actual delivery of the promises that are made by the various government roadshows and performances. But one thing is for sure, Tamil Nadu is, if I can use the term of cricket, it's an all-rounder state. Whether it is in infrastructure or education, you take any aspect, whether it is the hard aspects of power, road, bridges, broadband connectivity, etc., Tamil Nadu scores very high. We are either number 1 or number 2 or number 3. You take any factor, whether it is exports, we are within number 3. If it is FDI, we are within number 3. Number of factories I mentioned, we are number 1. There are many areas like this where we are number 1 in terms of this hard area of activity, infrastructure in terms of development and so on. But what we are good at simultaneously is our strength in terms of the soft sectors, whether it is education, whether it is healthcare. Our healthcare facilities, the primary health center, I'm not talking about the multi-specialty hospitals, the corporate hospitals and so on, which are there everywhere. But Tamil Nadu is number 1 if you take the quality of the primary health centers. We have more than 1,600, and all of them, many of them are upgraded as 30-bedded hospitals and so on. We will always be the leaders in terms of any program that is launched in healthcare. So that is one aspect which many other states cannot match, whether it is infant mortality rate or maternal mortality rate or any of these other aspects relating to healthcare, whether it is universal immunization or whether it is institutional deliveries, we will be number 1 in that. The next will be education. In terms of gross enrollment ratios and all that, we are already more than 100%. And at the primary level, there is of course the issue of the quality that needs to be addressed, but still we have the facilities in place, we have the teachers in place. We would have heard of stories in other states where the teachers' salaries are not paid for 5 years, 6 years and so on. Here the teachers are so well taken care of. In fact, sometimes I feel that they are not doing enough. But the point is, we do have a very, very good education system right from the beginning, and we have the options. We had the earliest instances of single window counseling and so on for getting students. And in terms of social safety net, we have had some of the earliest programs. We started with the cooperative movement here long back. The library movement started in Tamil Nadu. We have had the examples of the pension scheme, the rural pension schemes, which much is talked about these days, Jandan, Vandan and all that. We are the pioneers in all these pension schemes. We had the nutritious noon meal program in the early 80s. And at the time when the scheme was introduced, we were all beginners in the service in those days. And I remember a lot of write-up about the government making beggars out of children. They said the children of Tamil Nadu are being forced to stand before the kitchen and all that with aluminum plates in their hand. The government is making beggars out of them. That was the comment at that time. Many people said that the government will not be able to sustain this kind of a huge nutritious noon meal program. Right now, we are running this program in 68,000 schools, 68,000 centers. No other state in the country has been able to do this in terms of supplying hot cooked food. Bangalore has the model where ISKCON is supplying from a centralized kitchen. The centralized kitchen is a very modern structure, very beautifully done with steam, etc. but still they have not been able to deliver food cooked in the premises in 68,000 locations in quite a hygienic manner compared to our usual standards. So these kinds of safety nets, people decry some of the welfare schemes. They say that you guys are giving rice free, this free, that free, etc., etc. But still, we find that industrial peace is maintained by such kind of a safety net that is available for the people of the state, which is one of the reasons why we have very little industrial strife and a lot of commercial activity continues because of this kind of the safety net that the government has been giving to the people of the state. We have had very innovative schemes. Recently, last year or so, we launched this Amma Unavagam. People will say that why the corporation is not cleaning up the place or doing the rest of the stuff, but starting canteens for the poor, etc., etc. But then that intervention helped in bringing down the prices in the open market. It also provided a basis for having good quality food for a huge number of floating population and migrant workers and so on and so forth. I would urge some of you to visit the Amma canteen in the government hospital, in Rajaji government hospital. There's a Rajiv Gandhi government hospital opposite the central. About 5,000 people eat in that place every afternoon. And it brings tears to your eyes when you look at that particular location, because these people did not have a proper hygienic food facility before. And many of them come sick and they are really poor. Only the poorest of the poor will even try to come anywhere near the government hospitals. And these guys having to spend 100 rupees, 150 rupees for their food, etc. No? One chap has to be accompanied by 2 or 3. And you can imagine the kind of cost they were incurring and the kind of facility this has been made available to them right now. So why I'm citing this particular thing, please do not misunderstand me that I'm trying to plug for some scheme which a ruling party has implemented or something. But this is one scheme where I find that there was a niche, that the people were feeling the need for such a facility, and that facility has been provided. When the scheme was launched, I remember in the beginning, people were saying that let us do it in this kind of push carts and this and that and all that. We stood firm and said that no, it should not be organized like this. We also got the government to agree that these centers, the women who are running these centers, will not have any other responsibility except to cook and keep it clean and all that. They will not have the responsibility to buy the provisions, run the store, run the mixies and grinders and so on and so forth. So the model has worked very well. Many of the states are trying to replicate it, including Delhi government, but I'm not really sure whether their heart is there in making such schemes work successfully. Whereas in Tamil Nadu, despite the political and other issues, we do find that these kind of issues are taken very seriously, and we do make an impact wherever it is possible. The same nutritious noon meal program which was decried in the beginning won laurels for the state from the World Bank, UNICEF, and many other international organizations. The same thing applies to our laptop scheme. Uttar Pradesh government tried to copy that and continue with the scheme, but I'm not sure whether they are still continuing with that scheme right now. TN has recently placed orders for the next tranche of these computers, laptop computers that are being produced. In fact, I have seen at varied locations the use of these laptops. We are introducing a new culture, a digital learning atmosphere for the students from the poorer backgrounds. Some of it definitely will be misused, I'm sure about it. But most of it, I think we are opening up a new vista to the people from these backgrounds, which is going to help us in the long run. I think in the next 10, 20 years' time, we are going to see much more developments in this regard. So the short point is, the state is powerful, or it is good, it is excellent because of the people. Not because of the government, not because of the bureaucrats, not because of anything else. It's because of the people of the state who have made the state what it is today. And this cannot be wished away by any kind of special incentives, packages, any kind of other tactics which other places might try. And we have been looking at the various aspects of industrialization here. And we are also aware that many of the industries do face a lot of nitpicking problems. And it is necessary that from the government side, we do a very consistent way, in a consistent, orderly manner, we solve their problems. I'll briefly mention about the Global Investors Meet. We are going to have it on 9th and 10th of September 2015, basically to build the brand equity of the state and also to project the state as one of the leading investment destinations. We are expecting lots of global companies, leaders, policymakers, etc., global trade associations. These are the partner countries. They have already confirmed: Australia, Canada, France, Italy, Japan, Korea, Singapore, and United Kingdom. In fact, we have had substantial interest shown by French companies. Italy came on its own, and they are also very interested in doing more on the skill development aspect. Japan and Korea are well known, United Kingdom, of course. And some of the regions in France and Canada have also become partner organizations for us. Almost all the international partner organizations are there, including Malaysia, India Business Council, and including Taiwan and many other countries, Singapore, UK, India. US is not a partner nation, but US-India Business Council is having a seminar in our two-day meet. This will be the opportunity for the business and other industrial community here, interaction with many of the company leaders, and bilateral investment opportunities. There will be opportunities for that, B2B and B2G meetings. And also a sneak peek, I like this expression, sneak peek into the rich cultural heritage of Tamil Nadu, which is something which other states also have a share, like Odisha and West Bengal and other states also have a rich cultural heritage. Our cultural heritage and exposure to that is always welcome. These are the focus sectors for the Global Investors Meet. Basically, our traditional industries like textiles, but also the newer areas like aerospace, which Mr. Lakshminarayan was mentioning, infrastructure, IT, ITS, food, agribusiness, etc. I would end my presentation with a welcome to all of you to be part of our Global Investors Meet. We had fixed a target of about 100,000 crores of MOUs to be signed during those 2 days. From the beginning, we have been making the point that our MOUs will not be expressions of interest, but these will be very, very concrete proposals which will specify the location of the investment, the amount of investment, the number of workers, the direct employment they will give, and so on. And it will also give the commitment on the part of the government, like uninterrupted power supply, etc. So these MOUs many of them are already under implementation, and many of them have already started. And we do expect a substantial inflow in almost all the sectors. We have had excellent participation in terms of the energy sector, IT, in terms of handlooms and textiles, in terms of industrial parks. 3 Japanese industrial parks are coming in and around Chennai. Even today I saw in the morning about one logistic park promoted by a private entrepreneur. We have also been talking to the ports for increasing their capacities and improving their infrastructure. Power sector, of course, has seen huge interest, both traditional power as well as renewable energy, particularly solar energy. And we are also planning many more units which will produce solar panels and other switches and so on, because instead of importing the stuff from China and all that, it is necessary that we do have facilities for manufacturing many of these items. We are also looking at handlooms and textiles, including textile parks. There are a few companies relating to fisheries, agro-processing, ITC, for example, Britannia, for example. There are many companies which have expanded here. Many automobile companies which are already housed in TN, they have announced their expansion plans. We've also got new ones like Mahindra and Mahindra they have not yet produced a car in Tamil Nadu. We do have investment proposals from many of these companies, and we do hope that we'll not stop with the Global Investors Meet, because the number of investments that are coming, even as of today, we are actually saying that, okay, let's hold it back, and we'll discuss a little later because we are busy with the other things. So this is the kind of encouraging atmosphere that has come around, basically because I think certain basic issues like power have been sorted out, and we do expect that the Global Investor Meet will provide us an opportunity to provide jobs to our talented millions, and will also project the state in a much better fashion worldwide. I thank ICTACT and the rest of our colleagues for the opportunity that has been given. I request all of you to be part of our Global Investor Meet and be with us. Thank you.